Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Shawnee Mission School District hosted rescheduled KPERS pre-retirement seminar. We're happy to have you here this evening. My name is Nicole Churchill. I've been in human resources for about 12 years, and I've been the KPERS designated agent for the district for the last 9. First, I'd like to thank everyone that made tonight possible. The custodial staff for setting up the room, our ITC department for connecting the equipment, and the whole Shawnee Mission HR team. Hopefully you were able to get information from Social Security Administration, Martha with the Hosback Agency, Corbridge Financial, and then you'll get KPERS tonight. Without all of you, tonight would not be possible. It definitely takes a village. So raise your hand if you think you know everything about KPERS retirement and could retire tomorrow. I didn't think so. Very few of you, or if none of you. I handle retirements every day, and I'm still learning new things. I learn new things every time I come to this seminar. The decision to retire can be very confusing and scary. So my hope is by the end of the evening, you'll have a better understanding of the process, your choices, to make the best decision for you. I'm briefly going to explain the contents of your retirement folders. So everybody should have a folder. If you are a Tier 1, and Tier 1 or 2, you were hired prior to December 31st of 2014, you're going to have a green folder. If you were hired January 1st, 2015, you're going to have a yellow folder. So if we open them up, the left side is going to be exactly the same. There's a yellow sheet there. It is the agenda for this evening. On the back is the timeline for retirement, and it specifies certified, classified, the different timeline and dates for that. Then you're going to have a green sheet. This is the retirement checklist and the SMSD steps to retirement. If you were to follow every single one of these, you'd have everything done. Then there's a blue sheet. This is the resignation retirement form. You would, once you made the decision, you would complete this and then give it to your supervisor or administrator, and then they'll turn it into HR. Okay, then we're going to go to the right side. If you have the green, you're going to have retirement application for 1 or 2. Yellow, you're going to have a retirement application for 3. And it's very important that if you use the correct retirement application for your tier. KPERS, in the green, you're going to have the retirement planning guide for 1 and 2. And for 3, you're going to have the brochure on how benefits work. Then each one of you, all tiers will have the working after retirement. These are all things that Paige is going to go over tonight, but it's kind of nice to have it in writing and you can refer to it later. Whoops. Also, this is being recorded. So don't feel like you have to get all of the information tonight. You'll be able to watch it on the website later. Okay. The district website. So, yes. So, and this is very important. I should have brought this up too. So I've created a KPERS information page on the district website. You don't have to go to staff. You just go to smsd.org, go to human resources, and go to KPERS. Then you'll look on the right-hand side, and you'll see retirement process. If you go to that, it'll show the video that we recorded last year. It'll have all of these forms. It'll have information about, it'll have the forms, the application, the links to the KPERS website. It'll have all the information that you need. Great. Okay, so I'm going to give it over to Paige for the main event, and then we'll have, after Paige, then we're going to have Nick Neff from Corebridge. He's going to speak and give some bonus information. Okay.
So I don't have to scream. Hello, and if I'm a little bit too loud speaking in this, let me know. If you can't hear me, let me know also. My name is Paige. I am with KPERS with the Education and Training Department. I am so much happier to be here tonight than the last time this was planned when there was like 10 feet of snow and everything else. Is like, I don't think I want to come. So I'm glad she kind of changed the date. So much nicer today. So thank you for joining us. I know she said she's recording this and that you can watch it again on the website and things like that. But just so you know, in case you have any other friends that are KPERS members around town, an email went out, should have gone out to you all, letting you know of our spring pre-retirement seminars that we'll be doing fairly soon. We're coming up in March and through April. We'll be at a lot of places around Olathe, Lenexa, Shawnee, giving this again. Because a lot of times, I know I recognize a few faces that have been here before. It seems like every time you listen to this, you always hear something new, because I think as you get closer and closer and closer to your retirement date, a certain thing starts getting more important to you, and you start paying a little bit more attention to that other little piece. So I know a lot of you have how many of you have been here before, done this before, been there, done that? Yeah. So thank you for attending again. Our retirees tell us that all the time. I had to listen to that 3 times before I finally figured this out. And believe it or not, it's the easiest part of retiring. Medicare is hard. Social Security is hard. I know if you've ever, right now we're talking about retiring from KPERS. That is just a small piece of your retirement puzzle. There is so much more that goes into it. But please make sure that you do your homework on all the other little pieces before you pull the plug and start collecting your KPERS pension benefit. There's so many times people will come into our offices, hand us their retirement application, and go, well, how much is my benefit going to be? And I'll go, you don't know how much you didn't even do an estimate. You have no idea. You just quit your job and you're ready to retire and you have no idea. That scares the heck out of me because they didn't do the homework. And a coworker one time was getting ready to retire, and she turned around and looked at me one day and she said, retiring is hard work. She's never done so much homework in all of her life. The KPERS piece will be easy, but please make sure you do the homework before you turn in your retirement application and decide to go ahead and retire. So I've scared you now a little bit, I know. But KPERS and Social Security will not be enough to live comfortably in retirement. Experts recommend that in retirement, you should be able to replace about 80% of your current income with retirement income. And so we're lucky we're going to have our KPERS. I know when I was young, I used to complain about having to contribute into KPERS. And now that I'm nice and old and I'm ready to retire myself, I'm like, I am so glad that I did that, because I know I am going to have a benefit coming in each month for the rest of my lifetime. Not too many people can say that these days. And with any luck, fingers crossed, we will know Social Security throughout the rest of our retirement. But Social Security and KPERS were never meant to live comfortably on. We're going to need another piece of that puzzle. And that's where some personal retirement savings comes in. We might go ahead and get an estimate for our KPERS and an estimate for our Social Security and go, I can live on that. Well, that's today you can live on it. Some of us might have 20, 30 years of retirement ahead of us, and we might, our inflation is going to kill us probably. What we can live on today, we may not be able to live on in the next 10 or 20 years. Or you might go, you know what, my house is paid off, I'm good to go. All my cars are paid off, I'm good to go. Well, things break down. Things in our house break down, things in our cars break down, our bodies break down. And so we never know what else is going to come, and we might need another larger pot of money to borrow from, and that's where your personal savings comes in. So please make sure you kind of look at the whole picture. As you're putting that retirement puzzle together, make sure all the pieces are going to fit in so that when you do pull the plug and finally decide to retire, you're going to feel comfortable about it. Because I want to make sure people go back to work after retirement because they want to, not because they had to. With that, KPERS will not affect your Social Security, nor will your Social Security affect your KPERS. Nothing will affect your KPERS pension benefit. You can go back to work and make gobs and gobs of money somewhere else after you decide to retire from KPERS and keep plugging. You're just going to keep getting that pension benefit each month for the rest of your life. Nothing will affect it except for just maybe a little bit of federal withholding. And nothing is going to, and KPERS isn't going to affect your Social Security either. But make sure though, when you are ready to retire, you have, before you've pulled the plug on KPERS, you've actually gone and did an estimate for Social Security. They have a great website at ssa.gov. You can go in there and play around and do an estimate. Do I want to take my Social Security benefit at 62? Do I want to take it at full retirement age? Do I want to wait till I'm 70 before I take my maximum benefit from Social Security? Make sure you look at that picture and decide when you want to take that and how that's going to work together with your KPERS pension benefit. How many of you have been on that website? I think it's fun to go in there and kind of play around with that and see, okay, this is when I think I want to retire. There's just it's great. I love it in there. So, but if you're not great with computers, they do have a phone number. You can always give them a call or go down to your local Social Security office. They'll be happy to help you out and let you know a little bit more about starting to collect your Social Security benefit. KPERS is a 401A retirement plan. What does that mean to you? Basically, what that means is a defined benefit plan. And so that means that what happens is you've been paying into KPERS a certain percentage of your paycheck every time you get paid. And then and actually your employer's been putting some money in too. And then when you get ready to retire, we're going to calculate a benefit based on your years of service and your final average salary. So we're going to calculate your benefit, and we're going to give you a pension benefit each month for the rest of your lifetime. Now, believe it or not, in about the first 3 to 5 years of retirement, KPERS will have paid out more to you in retirement benefits than you've ever contributed or even earned in interest. But we have to keep paying you each month for the rest of your life. So where does that money come from? It comes from our KPERS trust fund. So let's kind of contrast that, though, with a little bit to our personal savings. Our personal savings, we decide how much money we want to put in, and when we want to take some out, we decide how much we want to take out. But with your personal savings, when that money's gone, it's gone. With KPERS, keep paying each month for the rest of your life. That's the beauty of a pension that you have. Right now, you've been contributing 6% of your gross wages into KPERS. It does earn interest, about 4% interest if you've been around since the 80s. It's earning about 7.5% interest, but for most of it's 4% interest. But that comes into our account on June 30th based on the amount of money in our contribution account on December 31st. But if you're a KPERS 1 or KPERS 2 member, the amount of money in your contribution account means absolutely nothing, because we don't use that to calculate your benefit. That is not what we use. It is only important if you happen to pass away before you get an opportunity to retire, or if you decide to withdraw your money instead of pulling out your retirement. But for KPERS 3 members, the amount of money in your contribution account is important. I'll hit on that just a little bit. Your employer is putting in money as well. They're contributing a heck of a lot more than you're contributing, and it is based on your gross wages. But it is not a matching fund. We're not a private, retirement fund. We're a pension system. So they're putting in money into it goes straight into our KPERS trust fund, and that trust fund is there to pay for the death benefits that you have and future retirement benefits. When I said that KPERS has to keep paying you each month for the rest of your life after you've blown through everything that you've contributed and earned in interest, money comes out of the trust fund. That's where that comes out of. So basically that trust fund is made up about 15% of our contributions, about 35% of employer contributions, and almost about 50% of it is our investments. With a 401A defined benefit plan, you do not get to decide how we invest that money. We have an investment team that does that, and they're doing a very good job with it. In fact, our trust fund is doing very, very well right now as we go along. Your benefits are going to be here. I know you hear lots of things on the news about KPERS a lot of the time, but your benefits are going to be here all throughout your retirement. There's nothing to worry about with that. Right now, we have about $25 billion in assets in our trust fund. We take in about $1.5 billion a year. We pay out about $2 billion, though, every year. So you can kind of see what's going on. We're not taking in quite as much as we're paying out. And as the boomers, all of us, are getting ready to retire, more and more money is going to keep pouring out of that. So we rely heavily on our investments. And we are your fiduciary, so we have to keep our funding needs in front of our Kansas legislature. KPERS has to follow rules and state laws brought down to us by the state legislature. We also have to follow rules of the IRS. So a lot of times if we have crazy rules that you have to abide by, it's not because we came up with them, it's because the IRS said we had to do that, or because the Kansas legislature said, hey, this is the way it has to be. So we have to do that. So basically, though, so we have to keep those funding needs in front of the legislature so that they can decide what to do. We want to make sure that, that the young kids today that are entering into the KPERS membership field are going to know retirement like we are going to know retirement. That's why there's lots of different rules and things that get brought down. That's why they created the KPERS 2 program. That's why they created the KPERS 3 program. And who knows what's coming next with that. Let's talk a little bit about retirement eligibility. Before you can turn in an application, you have to be eligible to retire. And that is going to be based on your tier level. It's very important that you know your tier level, and I'm glad you have these little matching folders that will let you know. If you were hired before July 1 of 2009 and active before July 1 of 2009, you're a KPERS 1 member. So if you have about 25 years of service or so, you're more than likely a KPERS 1 member. But KPERS 1 members, do you remember having to wait 10 years before you could become vested in the KPERS program? If you remember that, then you are more than likely a KPERS 1 member. Then if you went to work for any other employer besides a school district, you had to wait a year before you could become a member. So a lot of times, there's a lot of folks walking around that are KPERS 1 members that actually had to work 11 years before they could become vested in the KPERS system. Then the Kansas legislature came up with the KPERS 2 tier, which basically is a small group of people. How many of my KPERS 1 members do I have, by the way? A lot of you. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. KPERS 2 is a small group, probably not very many of you. You were hired between July 1 of 2009 and December 31st of 2014. That is when they took that 10-year vesting and they brought it all the way down to 5 years. So now you only had to work 5 years to be vested in our system. You didn't even have to work that year. So, KPERS 1 members, some of them had to wait that year before they could become a member. KPERS 2 members, their membership started immediately. How many KPERS 2 do I have in here? Okay, very few of you. And then they started the KPERS 3 tier program. So anyone hired January 1, 2015 or after, you are a KPERS 3 member. Again, vesting was only 5 years, but they changed how we calculate the benefit for the KPERS 3 members. How many KPERS 3 members do I have? There's always a couple in the crowd, all right? So it's actually been around for about 10 years now. So that's why we started doing actually specific pre-retirement seminars just for KPERS 3 members now in selected areas that we go to. Well, the next stuff I'm going to talk about, it's important for your tier level, knowing which that is. So KPERS 1 members, my folks out there, you can retire at age 65, as long as you have 1 year of service. And basically, that's for those folks that maybe had some KPERS time and then they went to work at a state university or something like that, because they have something called KBOR. But for most of us out there, it's age 62 with 10 years of service, or when your age and your years of service equal 85 points. So in this example here, this person is 52 years old and they have 29 years of service. We add that together, they have 81 points. Well, we're going to subtract 81 from 85, and this person only needs 4 more points to retire with full benefits. We're going to divide that 4 by 2. Why? Well, because you earn a point for your birthday and a point for a year of service, so you earn 2 points a year. So this person only needs to work 2 more years before they are actually eligible to retire with full benefits from KPERS. So this person could leave at age 54 and start collecting a KPERS pension benefit for the rest of their lifetime if they would like to. Now, you don't have to have 85 points. If you're 62 and you have 10 years of service or you're vested KPERS 1 member, you can retire with full benefits if you would like to. We had this older gentleman that had emailed us one time, and I think when we calculated his birthday, he was about 75 years old. And he said, you know, I've been out of the work world for a very long time. I don't think I'm ever going to hit those 85 points. And it was like, oh, we didn't have the heart to tell him that you could have taken it years ago. We said, turn in an application now, you do it now. Because waiting does nothing for you. I mean, years of service is what builds your benefit. Now, on the flip side of that, so you don't have to be working for a KPERS employer to begin collecting your KPERS pension benefit. So if you are no longer working for a KPERS employer and you've turned 62, turn in an application and you can go ahead and begin collecting your KPERS pension benefit. Now, on the flip side of that, though, you don't have to, just because you meet age eligibility, you don't have to retire. You can continue working and working and working and working and working and working and working as long as you want to. You know, if the nursing home is going to let you out and let you come to work, then you can go ahead and keep working, because the longer you work, the more years of service you have, the larger your benefit is going to be. Okay, so that is when you can leave with KPERS 1. It's just one or the other. You don't have to meet both of those criteria. KPERS 2 and KPERS 3, I'm sorry, you have to wait a little bit longer. You can retire with full benefits at age 65 as long as you're vested, or at age 60 as long as you have 30 years of service. So what happened is they went ahead and you didn't have to work as long to be vested, but we're going to make you work a little longer to collect that KPERS pension benefit. But for you, it's the same thing. I mean, you just have to wait a little bit longer. You don't have to be working for a KPERS employer to collect that benefit. So if you're 62 and you want to leave, you can, but you won't get a full-time benefit until you wait till age 65 to collect it. All of us in this room can retire early at age 55 as long as we have 10 years of service. But what happens is we're going to reduce your benefit, and that reduction factor is based on your tier level. So if you're a KPERS 1 member and you want to leave at age 55 with 10 years of service, we're going to reduce your benefit by about 40%. Now, the closer and closer and closer you get to full retirement age, the smaller that reduction factor becomes. So about the time you're age 60, it's going to be only about a 5% reduction. So if you're going, I can't do this any longer, I got to get out of here, you can go ahead and take it. You know, it's 2 years early, that's okay, but a 5% reduction isn't all that big. So maybe you might want to go ahead and do that. But you do have to remember it is a lifetime reduction in your benefit if you decide to do that. KPERS 2 members. If you decide to leave at age 55 with 10 years of service, unfortunately, we're going to reduce your benefit by about 60%. That's a lot. Yeah, so you have to think real long and hard before you take it then. Now, if you have 30 years of service, the reduction factor is only about 18%, so it's not that big a deal. Now, the closer and closer you get to full retirement age, also, the smaller that reduction factor is going to become. Just in this last week alone, I have had 2 KPERS 2 members email in saying they're ready to retire. And I'm going, you're not eligible for full retirement. And they went, well, and I said, are you sure you want to retire? Yes, I do. Well, the reduction factor for about an age 62-year-old is about 25%. So it's still pretty good ding in their retirement if they want to do that. KPERS 3 members, if you leave early, age is a factor in your retirement benefit. So the younger you are that you retire, the smaller your benefit is going to be. If you decide to retire early as a KPERS 3 member, you do not get a choice of what we call a partial lump sum option when you do choose your retirement benefit option. So some things to think about before retiring early. The earlier you retire, the more we're going to reduce your benefit. It is a lifetime reduction in your benefit, and there is not going to be any cost of living adjustment. I don't think the state legislature has agreed to have any of our retirees have a cost of living adjustment since the 90s. It's been a long, long time. Why do we not get a cost of living adjustment? Well, KPERS, that trust fund, has been pre-funded throughout our career, right? The money currently sitting in there is for our retirement benefits. What's not sitting in there is money for a cost of living adjustment. Where does that come from? That comes from the state legislature. So they have to have the money in their pots in order to give our retirees a cost of living adjustment. Every year, there's always somebody there, lobbying for us, but it never gets voted on. And you have to remember that inflation is going to reduce your buying power over time. So if you decide, yeah, I can live on that, that'd be great. I can retire early. You might live to 95 or something like that. Next thing you know, you're living on cat food or something. I don't know. But now, if any of you, can you guys still hear me? I don't want to make sure this microphone's still working. Okay, thank you. Yay. If you are thinking about retirement due to an illness or a disability, we have long-term disability coverage. All of our KPERS members are covered by long-term disability. So if you have an illness or a disability that's keeping you from doing your current occupation, you could qualify possibly for our long-term disability program. If you decide to go on that and you do get approved for it, you would receive 60% of your current wages. You would continue to earn service credits, so you would continue to earn years of service and build your retirement benefit. And then you'd also keep basic life insurance coverage that all of members have as well. So if you think that pertains to you or you know somebody that it's happening to right now, instead of them quitting or instead of them taking their retirement benefit early, tell them that they're covered by long-term disability and call KPERS and we'll talk them through it. All right, and in between here, if you guys have any questions, you are always more than welcome to ask me at any time. So let's talk about how we calculate your benefit. Remember, it's not based on the amount of money in your contribution account, KPERS 1 and 2 members. So for you guys, how do we calculate that benefit? Well, we're going to look at, I know this is kind of a hard screen to see, but we look at your final average salary. Now I said final average salary. Remember math from 5th grade or something? We have to learn how to average, our salary out. But it's a final average salary and your years of service, and then there's a statutory multiplier that we throw in there. For KPERS 1 members, there's 2 statutory multipliers. Well, for a lot of years, before January 1 of 2014, KPERS 1 members, we were only contributing 4% of our gross wages into KPERS, and then it went up to about 5%. So for those years where we were contributing less, they're going to use a 1.75% statutory multiplier. And then when they started the KPERS 2 program, that's when all of a sudden now we have to contribute 6% of our gross wages. And so for the years in which we were contributing 6%, we're going to use a 1.85% statutory multiplier. So we take your final average salary. This person had, what did they have? They have 20 years of service where they were only contributing 4 or 5%. So we come up with an annual benefit for them for those years, and then they had about 10 years at the 1.85% where they were contributing 6%, so we come up with an annual benefit for that, add it together, divide it by 12, because we have to pay you in monthly installments for the rest of your lifetime, and then we come up with the maximum benefit, the most money KPERS will pay you each month for the rest of your lifetime. KPERS 2 members, yes. January 1 of 2014, about then. It was like 4%, and then it went up to like 5%. Yes, ma'am. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Yep, get way ahead of me. Hang on just a second. Let's talk about KPERS 2. KPERS 2, you've always been paying in 6%. So we're going to look at your final average salary, your years of service, multiply it only by 1.85%, and we come up with your annual salary, divide it by 12, because we have to pay you in monthly installments for the rest of your life, too. And then that's your maximum benefit for the rest of your lifetime. Now, good question. How do we figure that final average salary? Okay, here's the date that some of you that have been around for years need to write down. If you started your KPERS career, maybe you didn't start working here at Shawnee Mission School District, maybe you started working somewhere else, but if you started your KPERS career before July 1 of 1993, you need to write down that date because we call you our golden children. Why are you our golden children? Well, because you guys can use your sick and vacation pay. I know teachers don't get a whole lot of that, but sick and vacation pay to help increase your final average salary. So when you leave employment is going to be very important. So for my golden children out there, we're going to look at your highest 3 years of all of your KPERS career. Average that out. Then we're going to look at highest 4 years of all of your KPERS career with your sick and vacation payout. We'll average that out. Whichever one is the highest is the one we are going to use to calculate your final average salary. But it's the highest of all of your KPERS career. We break everything down into quarters. We do quarters at KPERS, so we take a year and divide it into 4. So basically, we look at your highest 12 quarters or your highest 16 quarters. KPERS 1 members that were hired after July 1 of 1993 were pretty special too, but we're not golden. We get to use our highest 3-year final average salary of all of our KPERS career. KPERS 2 members, it's your highest 5-year average of all of your KPERS career or your highest 20 quarters. Now, KPERS 3 members, we don't use a final average salary to calculate your benefits, so you don't need to worry about final average salary. For KPERS 3 members, remember I said the amount of money in your contribution account is very important to you because we're going to use that amount of money to help calculate your benefit. You've also been earning something called retirement credits based on your years of service. It's not actual money, it's just a credit like in your account, but we use that number to calculate your benefit as well. We add those two things together. And then those two things are also factors, plus your age is a factor in what we look at some actuarial factors, and we use that to calculate your benefits. So we add that together, divide it by that actuarial factor, and again, with KPERS 3 members, we come up with an annual benefit because they're going to receive a pension check each month for the rest of your lives as well. The ratio in age does determine that actuarial factor. So again, the older we are when we begin to collect it, the larger your benefit might be. Now, sometimes you might be able to purchase service credit. You know, maybe you just need a year of service to get out of here. Maybe you just need 1 more year. I want to just call KPERS and buy a year of service. You can't do that. We're not, we don't just have service sitting on a shelf. You just can't say, yeah, I would just like to buy a year of service, please. You had to have earned it somehow or another, but you could purchase it if you would like to. It might help you retire just a little bit earlier. For some people, it might help them get vested and things like that. The cost is based on your age and your salary. So the older we get, the more money we make, the more expensive it might become. And so by the time you're sitting in here listening to a retirement seminar, you may not want to purchase any service that you might have. It has to be paid for in a lump sum, or you can do payroll deduction if you would like to. When we talk about service, a lot of times people, and I don't think the next slide says it. Nope. So a lot of times with purchasing service, when I said that KPERS 1 members had to wait that year before they could become a member of KPERS, that's called a year of service. They could purchase that if they wanted to. A lot of times KPERS members were KPERS members a long time ago, and then when they left KPERS employment, they went, I'm never going back to work for a KPERS employer ever again. I said that, and then so I thought, I'm going to withdraw all my money. And then lo and behold, here I am working for a KPERS employer again. And at that time, when I started back, I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I never would have withdrawn that money because I forfeited that time. I purchased back that time. So that's called forfeited service, and you can purchase that. There's also military service, lots of different things that you can purchase. So if you're interested in that, you can always go to our website and look up to see whether or not you might qualify to purchase any service. So now let's talk about when to choose a retirement date. Well, for certified staff, it's pretty simple. But for classified staff, it can be a little bit more difficult to decide. There's a first time to retire, and then a lot of times there's a best time to retire for yourselves. So all non-school and school non-licensed classified staff, so the majority of our KPERS members. Now, if you're a certified staff out here, just go to close your ears for a second. But you can only retire on the first of the month following your last day on payroll. So when KPERS says what's your retirement date, it's going to be either January 1, February 1, March 1, April 1, you kind of get the picture, right? You can only retire the first of the month following your last day on payroll. Well, a lot of times we get people that decide, well, you know what, I'm going to retire on December 15th. That's when I'm going to have my party. I'm going to back up everything. I'm going to tell everybody goodbye for the very last time. They get the retirement application in front of them, and what date did they write? December 15th. That was my retirement date. Well, as far as KPERS is concerned, that was your last day on payroll. Your retirement date is going to be the first of the month following that, so you can retire on January 1 for that particular person. Okay, so that's what you have to kind of follow with that. Teachers, certified staff. You can retire on June 1 as long as all of the work under your contract has been completed. Now, school might end in the middle, May, whatever, 23rd or something like that. As long as all the work underneath your contract has been completed, even though your contract goes into, August or something like that, you can retire on June 1 if you would like to. Now, when we had COVID, remember when they extended the school year out? Those poor people that wanted to retire June 1, guess what? They had to wait till July 1 to retire, so we had to extend that for them. Principals and superintendents, same thing applies to you. As long as all the work is under your contract, you can retire just as soon as that's done. Typically, that might be June 1st. But for my golden children out there that are certified staff, if you have at least 2 months' worth of sick and or vacation pay coming to you, then you might want to wait until September 1 to retire. You might want to wait till the end of your contract because that will help build your final average salary. If you don't have 2 months' worth of pay coming to you, of your regular pay coming to you in sick and vacation pay, then leave on June 1. It's not in your financial best interest to wait. But we can always look into that if you would like to, but that's for my golden children that are using that sick and vacation pay. Now, for teachers, rounding quarter doesn't make much sense unless you worked somewhere else before you went to work for a school. When we talk about rounding quarter, you're going to hear people talking about rounding quarter because we do everything in quarters. So basically, once you hit like 0.5, like 19.5, we're going to round your years of service up to another year of service. And that will increase your retirement benefit. And so with that, most teachers year-round in the fourth quarter. Well, the fourth quarter is in October, and it doesn't really matter because you're going to have to wait till the end of the school year to retire. You can't quit in the middle of the year. You have to wait till the end of the school year. Classified staff, though, you might round maybe in December to another year of service. And if that's the case, then you can leave. Probably your best time to retire is January 1. So the best question you can ask when you call up KPERS and you want to talk about retirement is, when is my best day to retire? And we will let you know. We can look at your account and let you know. Don't ask me when your rounding quarter is right now if you're one of those folks that can use their rounding quarter to retire, because I don't know what it is. We do actually every once in a while have certified staff that do round maybe in the middle of summer because they started their KPERS career outside of a school district. And so that might happen. But for the most part, you're going to round in October and then you can retire in June. So what that's going to do, excuse me, is build your retirement benefit and let you have a little bit an additional year of service. Let me explain it a little bit better. So John has 19.25 years of service on January 1. And he calls up and he says, I want to retire on January 1. And I go, okay, if you retire, now we're going to calculate your benefit at 19 years of service. But John, you round to another year of service in the second quarter. The second quarter for your agency starts on April 13th at his employer. So if he just works one day into that rounding quarter, he's going to get credit for the entire quarter. So if he's willing to work just a little bit longer, then he can retire. You can work on April 13th and then retire on May 1, and he'll have 19.5 years of service. When we calculate his benefit, we're going to round that up to 20, and for some people, that might add an additional $125 a month to their benefit. For some people, it might just be $30, but if I could talk this guy into working just 3 more months, might add additional $120 to his benefit for the rest of his life. I think it's worth doing. When people get ready to retire, first thing, hard question, what day do I want to retire? What year do I want to go? Do I want to work another year? Do I want to go ahead and retire? But once you make that decision on the date you want to retire, the hardest thing now is to decide which benefit option do you want to take. Because you have to decide on an amount of money you can live on for the rest of your lifetime. So basically, we have, well, if we look back at this again, it looks like 4 options for choice. There is multiple choice all over the place when you go to look at them, actually. So first of all, there's a maximum benefit. That is the most money KPERS will pay you for the rest of your lifetime. But that's for your lifetime. Once you pass away, there'll be nothing for anybody, okay? So let's say that, you remember I said earlier that in the first 3 to 5 years of retirement, KPERS will have paid out more to you in retirement benefits than you've ever contributed. Well, let's say you die 1 year into retirement and you took the maximum benefit. Well, we haven't had a chance to pay you out all your money. So if that's the case, then we'll give the rest of what's ever left over in your pot to your family. But let's say you live 10 years into retirement and you took your maximum benefit and you pass away, that money dies with you. There's absolutely nothing for your family. Now, if you would like to make sure there's something left over for your family, you might want to choose a joint survivor option. With that, you can do a 50%, 75%, or 100% joint survivor option. We will reduce your benefit down a little bit, your monthly benefit down a little bit, depending on which option you chose, and the difference between whom you chose as a joint survivor that you want to share that money with after you're gone. Most people choose their spouse. It does not have to be a spouse. It can be a significant other. It can be your great Aunt Sally. I'll give you my Social Security number. If you'll just put me down as your joint survivor, be happy to do it. Most people don't choose a child because there might be a 25-year difference in your ages, and that's going to really, really, really reduce your retirement benefit. But it doesn't have to be a spouse, okay? But what's going to happen then is if you choose a joint survivor option, let's say you choose the 50% one, your benefit's going to be reduced down a little bit. And then let's say you die, I don't know, whenever, you die before your joint survivor does, what's going to happen is then your joint survivor is going to receive half of your monthly benefit for the rest of their lifetime. And then if you chose the 75% one, your benefit's going to be reduced maybe a little bit more because now we're paying out more money over 2 lifetimes now. But if you pass away first, then your spouse or your joint survivor is going to receive 3/4 of your benefit for the rest of their lifetime. 100% joint survivor option, again, your benefit's going to be reduced a little bit more. But if you pass away first, your joint survivor is not going to notice a difference in the checking account. The same amount of money is going to come in for the rest of their life. Well, what happens if that joint survivor dies before you do? Guess what? Your benefit's going to pop back up to that maximum benefit it should have been had you never taken a joint survivor. Now, if you happen to get remarried, and one time I was giving this presentation, I said, if you're unlucky enough to get remarried, and I didn't mean to say that, but it's like, I don't know. So if you're unlucky enough to get remarried, or you choose that horrible option, no, I'm just kidding, you cannot choose somebody else to be your joint survivor. Okay, so if your joint survivor passes away, then it pops up to your maximum benefit, and that's what it's going to be for the rest of your lifetime. But it is an option that you might like to have if you want to make sure your benefit's going to carry on after your death. We also have a life certain benefit. Not too many people take this choice. Maybe you're that 95-year-old or whatever still living in the nursing home coming to work every day. They might want to choose the life certain option because maybe they don't have 5, 10, or 15 years into retirement and they want to make sure they get the most money they can out of KPERS. They can choose a life certain option. Or maybe you're sick and you know you don't have a whole long time of going on in retirement. You might want to choose it. Well, what is it? Basically, if you choose like a 5-year life certain option, that life certain time starts on the day of your retirement. And what we do is we guarantee we're going to pay out your benefit for the next 5 years to somebody. If you die within that 5-year period, we'll continue to pay out your benefit to your primary beneficiary till the end of that 5-year period. If you choose the 10-year and you die, into maybe 5 years into retirement, then we'll pay out your benefit to your primary beneficiary for the next 5 years. But you're taking a reduction in your benefit. So if you outlive that life certain option, then you've just taken a reduction in your benefit, and if you die, no one gets anything. So that's why not too many people actually choose that option, but it is there for you. KPERS 3 members. The reason why you have a different retirement application is because you have a little bit different benefit option choice. What they consider the best option is that base monthly option, which is a 10-year life certain option. But you can take a 5-year, a 10-year, or 15-year life certain option if you would like to. You can always do a joint survivor option as well. And then KPERS 3 members can do a partial lump sum choice also. But KPERS 3 members, you get a cost of living adjustment option if you would like to. The problem with this is it's self-funded. So you start out a little bit lower, and then let's say you take a 1%, then it increases 1% the next year, then 1% more the next year. I have not done the math yet to find out whether or not it is worth doing it, but it is an option for you. Everybody has an option for a partial lump sum option, which is a big chunk of your retirement benefit paid out to you early upon retirement. So basically, it's based on not on the amount of money in your contribution account. It's based on the actuarial present value of how much money will probably pay you out over your lifetime. So for KPERS 1 members, you can do 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50% partial lump sum option. KPERS 2 members can do 10, 20, or 30%. KPERS 3, you can take any amount of money up to 30% you would like to. But what happens with that, you can take it up front. But if you take a 30% partial lump sum option, we're going to reduce your monthly benefit by 30%. If you take a 40% partial lump sum option, we're going to reduce your benefit by 40%. So a lot of times people look at that huge number and go, oh, wow, I could pay off my house, or oh, wow, I can buy that new boat. You have to remember that you have to live on that reduced amount for the rest of your lifetime. So before you make that decision, please make sure you talk to a financial planner and make sure that it is in your best interest to do it. Make sure it is a financial planner that is trustworthy. Sometimes people will look at those dollars amount and go, oh my gosh, give it to me. I'll invest it for you. The wonderful things I could do with that money. But what you have to ask them is, okay, you know what? If I give you 50% partial lump sum option, I'm reducing my benefit by 50%. Can you make up the difference each month in investment income in what I am losing because I gave you all my money to invest? So basically, but you can take it in investment. You can roll it over to another retirement fund. It will go over dollar for dollar. You won't pay any taxes on it until you take it out of the new account. Or we can have it paid straight to you. Or you can do half one, half for the other. But if we pay that money straight to you, we are required by the IRS to withhold 10% right off the top for federal taxes. Now, 10% might be too much, and maybe you might get some of that back at the end of the year, or it might not be enough, and you might owe even more when you go to do your federal taxes. And if you're under the age of 59 and a half, when you retire and you decide to take a partial lump sum option, and you decide to have that money paid to you in cash, we put that money for your partial lump sum option in your checking account or your savings account, then you might get dinged an additional 10% when you go to do your taxes. But if you're over age 59 and a half, no worries. I'm not talking about the money that each month that you receive for your pension. I'm talking about that partial lump sum option that you might get dinged on. Yeah, I believe. So things to consider. When you take a partial lump sum option, it's going to create a lifetime reduction in your benefit. I want people to go back to work because they want to, not because they have to. So make sure you do it wisely. You can roll that over, again, to another retirement fund if you would like to. Again, can they make up the difference? And we talk again about that 20% federal withholding if it's paid directly to you. And again, the possibility of a 10% penalty if you're under the age of 59 and a half. I've had a lot of people that were maybe 58 years old and going, well, I was going to take a partial lump sum option to pay off my house. And I said, well, you know what? Why don't you just roll that money over to another retirement fund, and then when you turn 60, pay off your house out of the other fund so you don't get dinged again at tax time. So that might be something you might want to consider. How many of you have been into your online account? The member web portal. Okay, if you've tried to call us recently, anybody tried to call this week? Could you get into anybody? Yeah. You know why? Tax time. I think KPERS is very good about handing out our W-2s. We get them to our retirees very early. This year, they've been about 2 days late. And oh my gosh, I think every retiree that has ever retired from KPERS, I don't care where they live, tried to call us and go, where are my tax forms? Not only did they call us, they emailed us. They were looking for those tax forms. And so unfortunately, people this week have not been able to get in. So I'm glad that you finally were. But to get in under your online account, if you've never been in, you just go in as a new user. If you've been in before, you're probably going to be locked out. And if that's the case, you will have to call KPERS to get us to unlock your account. But it is a good place to keep your address up to date, especially our retirees. Once you leave employment, we always have to know where to find you because we have to mail those W-2s out to you. And so always keep your address up to date with us. But you can always change your beneficiaries online also. Now's a good time to go look to see, do you have a beneficiary on file? And then after your retirement, things change in our life, and you might want to change your beneficiary, and you can. And it's also, once retirement, it's a good place to download your 1099-R tax forms so you don't have to call KPERS to find out where they are and why didn't they come in the mail. But to go on there, you go to KPERS.org. Actually, we've changed our website. We've had to change from a .org to a .gov. But for right now, if you go to KPERS.org, you'll still get there. But you click on Member Login, and you can start. You just need an email address. If you're new, there's a little blue button under that middle picture. You just click New User, and you can add in some information. It'll take you to our homepage. Well, this homepage tells you absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. So what do you do next? Well, that KPERS word right there under the account is actually a hyperlink. If you click on that, then everything just pops up, and it'll let you know how many years of service you have, what tier level you are in. Are you one of our golden children? Were you a membership date before July 1 of 1993? You can do all that in your member web portal, but what I love the most about it is being able to calculate an estimate. So basically, you go in there, and there's a little button that says Benefit Calculation. You just click on that. And how many of you have done benefit? Okay, that's what got your names in the basket, right, for doing that or something like that? Yay for doing that. I think it's fun to go in there and play with different ages and see, when do I want to go. But what I don't want you to do, so this is what it looks like when you get in there, though, and you can pick your retirement date that you would like to. It will say your final average salary. Now, there's probably some very good mathematicians in here that go, you know what, in 5 years, I'm going to be making 2% more each month. I mean, they come up with all kinds of crazy things. And then they inflate their final average salary. And then they go to do their retirement estimate, and they think they're going to get all this money at retirement. And then when the actual check comes, they're disappointed because they overinflated their final average salary. So don't do that. If you just leave it in there, just then, you're going to get a good conservative estimate of what your benefit is going to be. And a lot of times people want to know what it is exactly to the penny, or what is it going to be exactly to the penny. And that's okay. But you know what? If you're living down to the last dollar, maybe you're not ready to retire if you need to know what it is down to the last penny. But it will calculate your years of service for you. You can put in somebody's birthday and decide whether or not you would like to include them as a joint survivor. And then you're going to get something that looks like this. Multiple choice all over the place. So which amount of money can you live on for the rest of your lifetime? It might be a hard choice, but it's not all that hard. First thing you have to decide, do I want to take a partial lump sum option? If the answer is no, your list is that first list right down there. Then do I want to do joint survivor or maximum, or what do I want to do? Maybe you want to do a 10%, then just go right down that line down there. But please make sure you understand these benefit options before you retire, because you have to live on this for the rest of your life. And once your retirement date comes and goes, you can't make changes. Or you might decide to take a 50% partial lump sum option and then decide, wait a minute, I can't live on half of that, my money. Give me more, please, KPERS. Well, we're not going to do that. You're stuck for the rest of your life. And remember, I said that Kansas legislature is probably not going to give us a cost of living adjustment. You can do an estimate online if you want to. KPERS 3, we have the slide for you because you were not able to do it in our member web portal, but guess what? Now you can. And so you should be able to go on our member web portal and do an estimate without having to go outside of it. But again, yours is going to look just a little bit different when you get it. That base benefit is going to be the thing that pops up in orange, but then you also can do a partial lump sum option as well, and you do have choices also. And again, there's that cost of living adjustment choice that you're going to get. So you're going to get 3 different graphs for my KPERS 3 members. If you would like a written benefit, if you want to know what it's going to be down to the penny, you can turn in what we call a 15E benefit estimate form. Then your employer usually fills it out, sends it into KPERS. We will then mail you an estimate based on the amount of the monies that have been reported to us by your employer. There's about a 30-day turnaround in order to do that. A lot of times, if you are our golden children, you might want to turn one of these in. If you were divorced and you have what we call a qualified domestic relations order on your account, your ex-spouse is going to get some of your KPERS retirement. Then you're going to also want to turn in a benefit estimate form as well, and we can figure out exactly who's going to get how much and things like that, so you'll know what your retirement benefit is going to be. What is the retirement process? Let's kind of finish that. Well, we're not finishing it up, but basically you need to pick your best retirement date. Choose a payment option, submit an application. We don't know you want to retire until you turn in that application. Just because you turn 62, we don't automatically retire you. You have to let us know that you would like to do it. And then now is the time to start looking for your birth certificate. And if you've changed your last name since the day you were born, all we need is a copy of your driver's license to show proof of name change. We do not need all 14 divorce decrees and marriage licenses, so your driver's license should do just fine. But find those things now because we will need a copy of those things. If you have a joint survivor, we will also need their birth certificate. And if they've changed their last name since the day they were born, we need a copy of their driver's license as well. You're going to receive a monthly benefit on the last business day of any month, direct deposited into your checking account or into your savings account. So if you retire on June 1, you're not going to receive your first pension check from KPERS until June 30th, the last business day of any month. Why do we wait a month? Well, because we have to make sure that all of your income has been reported to us so we can calculate your final average salary correctly. That's why we have to wait for that. You're not going to receive any notices. We don't send you any pay stubs or anything like that, but if you go into the member web portal, you can find that information. The amount of money you receive each month is taxable by the federal government. You don't have to take out any federal tax withholding if you don't want to. Most people don't like owing taxes at the end of the year. But it's just like your regular paycheck now. You tell your employer how much money to withhold for federal taxes, right? You have to tell KPERS, how much money do you want us to withhold for federal taxes? Now, we do not hold any state taxes out of your check. You've already paid Kansas tax on that money, so you will not have to report it on your Kansas taxes. But if you move to another state, you might have to report it as income. So you need to call that other state to find out how do they handle a government pension. Are they going to tax that? Then every year, at the end of the year, hopefully on time, you'll receive that tax form in your mailbox, and you won't need to call us and ask us, where's my tax form? I want to do my taxes. But you can always go online and see how much money is being withheld or things like that, because when you retire, your member web portal is going to look like this now instead of like the other thing, because it's going to show you how much money you contributed, how much money we've paid out over your lifetime, and things like that, and then how much like taxable withholding we're doing as well. Again, the 1099-R will come to you in the mail, but you can always download it in your member web portal. Oops, I thought I changed the slide. Guess what? Our retirees used to be covered by a $4,000 death benefit. That has gone up to $6,000. That was decided by the Kansas legislature this summer to give you in death an additional $2,000. So now it's a $6,000 death benefit. It is taxable by the federal government, so whomever receives that money is going to have to pay taxes on it, but you can designate a funeral home to receive that money. And if they do, they'll pay the taxes on the money. Now, there is no death benefit like the $6,000 death benefit, for a joint survivor if they were not a member of KPERS, just so you know that. So now's the time to keep your beneficiary information up to date. Right now, as a member of KPERS, you're covered by basic life insurance at 1.5 times your current salary. When you retire, that stops. But if you would like to take it with you when you go, you can, but it's going to cost you, and it's going to be expensive. Because now, instead of getting a great group rate, you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket at the individual rate, and it's guaranteed life insurance. They can't ask you any health questions, but because of that, they're going to ask for more money from you. And if you had any optional group life insurance, you could take that with you also if you would like to. You have 60 days from your last day on payroll to decide if you would like to take that optional life insurance. We don't know anything about health insurance, so please don't ask us. So contact your personnel office about more health insurance information. Okay, working after retirement. A lot of times people retire from KPERS and they think they need to go right back to work immediately. We call that working after retirement. Now, it's not that big a deal if you want to go back to work for some private entity out there, but for some reason, all of our KPERS retirees want to go back to work for a KPERS employer. Well, if you decide to do that, you're going to have to jump through some hoops because the IRS says if you're retiring from KPERS, shouldn't you be retired from KPERS? Why are you continuing to work? So there are some rules and some things you have to jump through in order to do that. If you go back to work for a KPERS employer, you're no longer a KPERS member because you're a retiree. So you're no longer going to be contributing 6%. But because you're no longer a member, you're no longer going to be covered by basic life insurance, and you're no longer going to be covered by a disability benefit, okay? So that's kind of something to think about. And there's going to be a waiting period before you can go back to work for a KPERS employer. And if you're caught breaking that waiting period rule, there's going to be some penalties for you. So what is a prearrangement? You cannot make a prearrangement to go back to work, especially our teachers. A lot of times they go, I'm retiring in June, put me on the substitute list for September. That's a prearrangement. You cannot do that. A lot of times people go, well, you know what, I run the office or I even run the library, and if I left, oh my gosh, this place is going to be just destroyed. So I will train the new person that's going to take my place. I'll do it for free. You won't even have to pay me. That's a prearrangement. You cannot do that. You can't interview for a job, you can't apply for a job, and you cannot volunteer your services during your waiting period at a KPERS employer. And again, penalties will ensue if you do. For people that are under the age of 62 when they retire, you have to wait 6 months. That's 180 days before you can go back to work for a KPERS employer. If you're over 62, it's only 60 days, not quite as long a waiting period. And that begins with your retirement date. And remember, you can't make a prearrangement. Now, a lot of times, if I'm out in western Kansas, they look at me like, I am in western Kansas. How are you going to even know that I went back to work, during my waiting period? You're in Topeka. Believe it or not, somebody is going to ratch out. They're going to call, and they're going to tell us what happened. And sometimes it's even the member themselves. They don't know that they're ratting themselves out, but they are. I had one lady one time, it was the DA, like Nicole is, who said, hey, I just enrolled this person, and I can't get them enrolled. Why is that? Because they're retired, and they just retired like 2 weeks ago. You have to fire that person right now, or you're going to get penalized. So what is that penalty? Well, we're going to suspend your benefit for 6 months, and you're going to have to pay back all that money that we paid you while you were working, when you were not supposed to. And then the employer is going to have to pay back that money as well, a lot of money, because they hired you and they knew better. So make sure you don't go back to work. And a lot of times I tell people, just enjoy a little bit of retirement, right? What's the hurry? And if your spouse is looking at you like going, will you please get back to work? You're driving me nuts being home. Say, I can't. That lady at KPERS said, I have to wait 6 months. Can't do anything for 6 months before I can go back to work. So just use that as an excuse. So real quick, retirement resources. We do have a page on our website just for you all where you can go in and look and find out a little bit more about retirement. We do have a pre-recorded version of our webinars that we put on there. But find out when you're eligible. Make sure you are eligible to retire. calculate an estimate. Please do not retire unless you know how much money is going to be coming in and you think you can live on that. Understand your payment options. Make sure you're going to feel comfortable in retirement and you're going to feel good when you turn in that application, because you need to submit an application to KPERS and then review any life insurance needs that you might have. Do you need to take that optional life insurance that we offer to you? Look at any tax withholding that you might need. Confirm Social Security, please. Look at that entire retirement puzzle. Get your KPERS piece, get that Social Security piece, and then look at any financial other monies that you might have, and are you going to be comfortable in retirement? So make sure you put all that together, please, before you ever turn in a retirement application to KPERS, please. All right, we have some phone numbers for you, and I think I pulled up the wrong slide deck. The email, if you have any questions about KPERS, you can email us at kpers@kpers.org. Pretty easy, right? You can ask us any question that you have about your account. Remember, the best question you can ask KPERS is, when's the best time for me to retire? You can always call us when the retirees aren't calling us all the time, but you can always call us at our 888 number. It's 888-275-5737. It is in the booklet that Nicole has given you. Social Security, ssa.gov, great place to go to get an estimate there. They do have a toll-free number. I hear you have to wait on a long time for a human being to answer the phone, but if you like to do the phone thing, go ahead. And then if you are in the KPERS, well, you don't have KPERS 457. I should have taken that off of there. But make sure you understand, if you have any private retirement savings, that you do call them and contact them and make sure that you have that whole picture together when you get ready to retire. So thank you guys for participating tonight and coming and listening more about how to retire. I appreciate it, because a lot of times people call, or they'll email us and go, I'm retiring in April, what do I do? Here's the recorded version of our retirement seminar. Please listen to it. But so thank you guys for coming, and I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Oh, don't leave yet, because I forgot. What is your name? Nick. Nick is going to be up next and talk to you a little bit more about your personal savings that you have. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of your night.
We're going to cover how to make the selection on your KPERS matrix up there. That's what we're going to spend the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes on. So how to pick which one in the box. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take about 20 or 30 minutes here, and what I want to do is kind of go over what we are looking at. A lot of what she covered we would normally have in the presentation, but she does such a great job, we don't have to. So what we're going to do is assume that you are already in the situation where you understand KPERS, you're getting ready to retire, and what we're going to do is go over what we as a financial advisor would go through or look for to make sure you're ready to retire. You know, the big things that we're looking at, as she's talked about, the first thing that we're always going to talk to people is, what do you need monthly to have a normal lifestyle, right? So we want to figure out, hey, you as a family, you as a team, what do you guys need monthly to have a normal lifestyle? And then what we're trying to do is get you the most money at the lowest or the appropriate tax bracket, right? Because if we do this correctly, there's a really good chance as we're going through this that you can keep your same income that you have right now, but potentially come down a little bit in the tax bracket. So what we're always trying to do is right-size your retirement. Make sure everything works out the way it's supposed to. So one of the first questions you always need to do whenever you're doing planning or whenever you're doing retirement is you want to go in and say, hey, what do I need monthly to have a normal lifestyle? So this is just a random example of a person right here. And in their particular case, they need $4,500 a month brought in to have a normal retirement plan. So what we do when we start talking about this is we want to get your KPERS. We want to get your Social Security. And what our goal is we're trying to plan your retirement and create your monthly income around that. So the thing that you're going to see me refer back to a lot, we're going to go to the KPERS page here in just a bit, but the thing you're going to see me refer back to a lot is the different tax brackets. And everybody's different in what they have in the way of tax brackets and where they're at. But what we're always trying to do, again, like we said, we want to find what you guys need to have that normal income. And then we go in and we start adding Social Security in, and we start adding KPERS in, and we start going through all the different items that you have. So in this particular instance, one of the things I'm going to revert back to, this is the 2025 tax bracket right here. So we know that the top of the 12% tax bracket for combined income is $96,950. And then you can comfortably add $30,000 on top of that for your standard deduction. So we know as a team, okay, in this scenario, right here, we can bring in about $126,000, $127,000 of income without jumping into that 22% tax bracket. Okay? So what we're trying to do is say, hey, what do you need monthly to have a normal lifestyle? And then on top of it, where are your different incomes and where are your different sources? So then we go back and we say, hey, we have a pretty reasonable understanding that at your age, we know what your Social Security is going to be. So when we break down your Social Security, we know where your age is, we know projections, we know things like that. So we're trying to revert back and say, okay, what do we need monthly? How do we right size? Where do we want to go from? So what we really are talking about here is we're going to go out to the KPERS calculator and use an example of what we as financial advisors would go through you guys as an individual situation. Because we know if we go back in this scenario that we put together here and said, hey, we know that Brian and Penny's Social Security between the two of them are going to be about $3,000 a month, and they need another $1,500 to $1,600 plus taxes to cover it. Now, we also have health insurance. We are very blessed here at the school district that if you've been with the district for more than 10 years and you're retiring and you still need to cover your health benefits, that we can take our health benefits with you. And that's a very important piece of the financial planning puzzle. Because if you leave the district's health benefits, that's locking one of you into working to the age of 65. Okay? So sometimes we have to factor that into your need as well. So we start putting all this together. We start bringing it all together as we're starting to work our way down. So we find out what that need is every month. And we come back and we start saying, we know in the future, even if you're 55 or whether you're 62, we're going to do some projections. We're going to kind of figure out a little bit about what your Social Security is. Okay? And here's the great part. So we go out to KPERS. We've got this matrix. Okay? So we put your date of birth in here. We can play with different ones later. We put your joint survivor in here, if you have a particular joint survivor. So you're single, we run it without. The day you plan to retire and your final average salary. Now, she did a great job on covering that. The only thing that I'm going to recover on final average salary is there's a little bit of a confusion on that one. When a lot of people look at their contract and they say, hey, you know, my contract for the school district this year is $78,000. KPERS looks at it from a January 1 to a December 31st is what your actual final average salary is counted off of. So when she talks about the quarters, those are the quarters that they're talking about. They're not talking about your contract, okay? So only half of every one of your salary is actually on a KPERS contract, right? So if you get a significant pay raise and you're tier 1, okay, it's going to take you closer to 4 years to wash all those lower numbers out. If you're a tier 2 member, it's going to take you close to 7 years to wash those lower numbers out, right? Because only half of every one of the contracts actually on there. So I get people who are like, hey, I'm going to work another year because I want to wash those lower salary out. Sometimes we have to do the math and make sure, hey, where does that fall in line with what we're working on and where we're going? Now, in this instance, and there's a lot of different ways, and we run this for everybody differently, we're just got somebody here who's been with the district for 27 years. We appreciate your hard work. We come down here, and this is what you all get to look at from a KPERS standpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 10 minutes here, and I'm going to go through this KPERS box with you as what we would look at if we were having a conversation with you. And we're going to show you some of the things that we would use for pension maximization. We're going to show you some of the pros and cons of the different things that we have out here. So the first thing that we have is the maximum monthly benefit. Okay, this is the highest number you can get from KPERS. It is a great benefit. The only negative with the KPERS maximum monthly benefit that was pointed out is it never has a cost of living adjustment. I use my grandmother as an example. My grandmother retired from the state of Kansas in small town Glasgow, Kansas, because I'm a central Kansas farm boy, in 1971. And she got $300 a month plus Social Security from KPERS, which made them they were the wealthy family in town because my grandfather also was in the state legislature. Flip it, bring it back around when she passed away in 2001, she still got the exact same $300. It didn't cover her prescription drugs. Okay? So we know that KPERS doesn't have a cost of living adjustment, right? And we know that Social Security does. So every year that we delay Social Security, it grows by 7% plus the cost of living adjustment, which on average is about 2%. So we know that every year that we delay Social Security, it grows by about 9%. So when we start talking about KPERS, when we start talking about Social Security, we start mixing them all together as a team, we want them to work together. We're trying to build this. And what you're going to see as I'm talking and going through this, what my goal when we're doing financial planning is, whether it's for you guys as a team or you as an individual, our goal is to take KPERS and Social Security and solve all of your retirement just using those two items. We're not even talking about your outside assets if need be, your savings, your 403b, your 457. Our goal is to use those two items to get you what you need every month to have a normal lifestyle. Because we don't want you to go home, and we don't want you to sit there and stare at the wall. Excuse me. And what we don't want you to do is sit there and say, hey, I don't have any money, or I have to go back to work, because that's not what we're trying to do. We want to have a good retirement. We want to go out there and do the things we want to. So in this particular case, we know that the maximum monthly benefit is the largest benefit that you can get, okay? So we take that number, and it's great. We're going to start there. But what we normally will look at a little bit differently here is the first thing we're going to look at is the joint survivor option. So we work our way down first before we work our way over for anybody. And how we look at it and where we're going from this one is, if you're sitting in this room right now and you have somebody that's important to you, what a joint survivor is, it was already pointed out very clearly, is you're going to take a reduction in your benefit to leave something for somebody else, okay? So it's a little later in the day, and I'm a lot better at dumb math than I am hard math. So we have the ability right now to take a 50, 75, or 100%. And it was pointed out earlier, 100% joint survivor right here is a reduction of a benefit of approximately $400 a month. When we add that up, that's about $5,000 a year to leave that benefit. So there's two things that we look at when we're getting ready to do this. When you're getting ready to retire, first and foremost is we look at your health and we look at your need. Those are the two things that we have. So if you have a need to leave this for somebody else, obviously we need to have this conversation about, okay, what's most important? The second question we're going to ask is health. How's your health? Are you in decent health? You're a little bit of ways away from retirement. For some people, it makes more sense to have a life insurance policy to cover that gap in there versus taking a reduction in monthly benefit. So as an example, let's say you're 55, getting ready to retire. We know that you can go buy a 20-year term policy that will pay $350,000 for about $150 a month. That covers you till you're 75. So that covers you for the poop years if something should happen earlier, okay? Now, do you have proper savings on the backside of that for that term to run out? Those are the things that we look at. But for some people, the $150 cost of an insurance policy that you can convert to a permanent policy is much more appropriate than taking a survivor benefit, depending on what your need is, okay? So sometimes we'll look at that, we'll figure out what's going on. If your health's not well, then we're going to come down here and say, hey, we've got to take this. We've got to look where we're going right here, especially if you're the primary breadwinner. We've got to make sure that you're covered. So the first thing that we're doing as advisors is we're always going in here saying, hey, what do we need monthly to have a normal lifestyle, and where do you fall on the survivor benefit, okay? So we're going to come down through here and pick this. Now, as was talked about earlier, there is also a life certain. We very rarely use the life certain, as she talked about. About the only time that we're going to use a life certain is if you have a special needs trust. Does anybody here have a special needs trust? What a special needs trust is where you have a somebody that you are responsible for that has special needs, and you need to make sure that that trust is funded. You need to make sure that that trust has money to take care of that person. So as an example, as we talked about, a life certain on a 15-year life certain, if you should pass away in year 2, that 2411 is going to pay out going to that trust until the end of the 15th year. Again, if your health is decent and you're insurable, it might make more sense to go buy an inexpensive term life insurance policy that automatically funds the trust. So depending on your need, depending on your health, there's different things that we can do to make sure we're maximizing your monthly income. So questions on those. Those are just some areas. That's the first thing that we're going to look at when we go in here. We know what your Social Security is going to be. So we start working our way down here. Okay. So once we've got that kind of figured out, we go back over here and we say, hey, you know what? We know what we need monthly. All right. We know we need $4,500 a month right now. Okay. Well, let's come back over here and let's say, hey, we're going to take a maximum monthly benefit. We know we don't need a survivor benefit. So we're just going to talk about that tonight. Make it simple, make it easy for everybody. So there's many reasons that you might take a partial lump sum. What we will always do, or what you should always do, is start here and say, if I take my Social Securities and I put them together, and I know that my Social Securities plus this number is the right number, then I'm in good shape. But if it's more than I need coming in, I'm paying taxes on money that I don't need. Okay? I'm giving money to Uncle Sam that I don't need. So what we start doing is saying, hey, wherever we fall on this up and down, even if it's on a joint survivor, we might work our way over this way, wherever we fall, until we get to that number that guarantees us what we need every month to live the rest of our life. So let's use this as an example. Brian and Penny need $4,500. We know they have $3,000 coming in, okay? Guaranteed from Social Security. So we come over here and we say, hey, where do they fall? In this particular example, if we take out federal and state, because we don't owe state taxes in Kansas on KPERS, and then additionally on top of it, if you're in the right tax bracket, you don't owe state income taxes as well. So we come over here and we work over here and we say, hey, right now, we could take about $1,917 plus our Social Security. When we add those two numbers together, that is $5,000 a month. We take that $5,000 a month, we come back to our tax brackets. We now have the exact same income that you currently have coming in every month, okay? And we've dropped you down to the 12% tax bracket. So we brought your effective yield of your current income and brought it all the way down to the 12% tax bracket. We take the money in the partial lump sum, roll it over to a retirement account, and now you have that money for later in life to use when cost of living pops up. And that's one way we would look at it. Now, do we have anybody here who might double dip? Might go to another state, something like that. You know, one of the most common questions we get is, hey, what should I do when we're going to double dip? Same question. The first thing we've got to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look at your Social Securities. And then the second thing that we're going to do is say, hey, are you going to go work for another state pension? We can pretty well do a quick estimate if you're going to go to Missouri, how long you're going to work, what your job income is going to be, what that pension is going to add in there. Then again, we come back in here and we start adding all those numbers in together. And again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get you the right amount of money every month without going over. It's just like the Price is Right. We come back to that tax bracket. Where are we falling into that tax bracket? Okay? So we're trying to right size that, make sure we're in that right income in there. Now, if we do go double dip in Missouri, the whole point, no matter what you pick on KPERS, it does not matter. What we're trying to do is when we go over to the Missouri and we start working over there, our goal is to replace your current income and save that money. There is no point in going over to the Missouri side and working if you're not saving that money every month. Because I've run the math a couple hundred times, and I can tell you this, it's a wash. You're not going to add enough on the Missouri pension to outweigh what you would have got by staying in Kansas. We can do that over and over and over again. There's really no math that makes that work, unless you're taking a big pay increase or a big change of position over there. But if you're going equal to equal, you gain just as much by staying here, okay? So really what we're trying to do when we do a double dip is we're trying to take this money right here and save this monthly into our new job over there to eliminate that taxable income. Because we don't want to go over there and have $36,000 coming in from KPERS, have another $60,000 job, and give 30-some% of that to Uncle Sam for no reason. It's not helping us. We didn't do anything good right there. There's no benefit for you. So we need to find that happy medium. We have to do the math on it. We have to figure out what the wash is. We have to figure out where you're going to work and where you're going to go with that. Now, another popular one. Let's say I'm 62. I just retired. I know that we ran the math, and if I take my Social Security right now, plus, just as an example again, I take a 30% partial lump sum. I know when I put this all together, I'm going to have my money that I need every month for the rest of my life that nobody can ever take away from me. I've solved my retirement. But now I've got an extra, in this scenario, $100,000. So what some people will do, we will take that $100,000 and we will use it to supplement instead of taking Social Security for the next 2 or 3 years. Now, every year that I delay Social Security, it grows by about 9%. And if I take that times 2 people, that starts to add up pretty quick. Now, as a financial advisor, we start doing the math. A much bigger part of my living, monthly guaranteed living expense, now has a cost of living adjustment that I didn't have because KPERS doesn't have a cost of living adjustment, right? Okay, so we're using something that doesn't have a cost of living adjustment to strengthen something that does. And we can do that because KPERS is so powerful. It gives us that flexibility, right? So we can go in here and we can say, hey, we can use something to create more strength instead of just setting on an asset or just setting there. Okay? So depending on what you need, you can use these different options to strengthen your situation. We go back to the first thing that we're always going to do, though, over and over and over again. We've got to get what you need every month to have a normal lifestyle. And then we bring the different scenarios in. But we can use those different scenarios to manipulate taxes, okay, to create larger guaranteed streams of income that have cost of living adjustments to it. So if you look at what we just did, all right, some of you may have really good savings out there, but look what we just did for Brian and Penny. Okay, we came in here and we said at 62, we can cover their monthly living expenses plus taxes for the rest of their life just by using KPERS and a partial lump sum. Now, flip side around, bring that back around. If we need a survivor benefit, somebody's sick, we covered their estate by using the joint survivor or a life insurance policy. If we have a special needs trust, we just covered the special needs trust. If we're going to double dip, we've now created a situation where we have much more favorable taxes and we're backloading the money. So depending on what you need and where you're at, we look at these from different situations, but there's just ideas there to help you say, hey, why would I push? Why would I pull? Why would that be appropriate? So an example that we get a lot is, I'd like to take money out to pay off a house. There's not really good math that works that way. You don't want the money to come out and go direct to you because as it was pointed out, you're going to lose 25 to 35% of it. We roll it over to an IRA. That's great. But guess what? There's a really good chance you've got a 3% interest rate if you've been there very long. Well, if you've got a 3% interest rate and you've got a $2,000 a month payment, guess how much of that is taxes and insurance? I'm going to bet you it's darn close to $1,600 or $1,400 a month, right? So you just took $30,000 or $40,000, paid 30% in taxes on something that you're only going to gain to a little bit every month on. The math doesn't work out. So we want to use it very specifically. You know, in a car, don't get me started on cars. Anybody in here ever hit a deer? Yeah, we'll leave that one alone completely. Cars and KPERS don't work out together. We want to use this mindfully. You've got a gift. This is what you've worked your entire life for, okay? So if we use this properly, it'll fund your retirement forever. And if we do it right, it'll strengthen your cost of living adjustment as well. So everybody's situation is a little bit different. Some people, the maximum monthly benefit is the only way to go because they don't have enough room in there. Their Social Security isn't big enough. You've got to have that monthly income coming in. You can't do any of these other scenarios till we have that covered. But if you've been a saver and you have assets, then we bring in the other options of, hey, here's how we can manipulate. And then we get fun. Because when we start talking about tax brackets, now we bring in, okay, we're in a lower tax bracket. We can do partial Roth conversions. We can do changes. We can make manipulations happen. That's where the financial planning side of stuff with your advisor or somebody comes into. So, all right, I've talked. And as you can tell, I don't have much of a voice left. I've been talking for 2 days straight here. So I appreciate it. We will take time. Does anybody have any questions? You want me to go over any ideas, scenarios, any things like that? Anybody want to throw stones? That's also a good one. If you've got anything you want to throw at me on that one. Like I said, everybody's situation is different. There is no one size fits all. There is no, hey, this is right, this is wrong. But there's different ways, like we just showed you. We can take a person here and solve their entire retirement without ever touching their other assets, put them in a lower possible tax bracket, and live pretty darn good. Off of just KPERS and Social Security. We do it daily. It's fun to see the light come on and see people go, wow, that's real? It's like, yeah, you can retire. Get out of here. Or, no, you got to work 5 more years. Sorry. They don't like me as much when I say that, but it is what it is. How it goes. What questions? Anybody have any questions? You'd be the first group not to ask questions or throw something. Anybody? Yes, I'm going to go back here first because I want... It is not happening if you are over the age of 25. Social Security is not being changed. No, it will not be. There's this little group called AHRP. I don't know if you've heard of them or not. Ain't happening. Now, your kids, I would not say that about. But if you are under the age of 35 right now, you might have some, but you're over 35, it's not changing. So, yep. No, go ahead. Over the age of what? If your kids are under the age of 35, I think there's a chance Social Security might change for them. You're over 35, there's nothing on the table that's going to happen. I can tell you this right now. Right now, 1/3 of the United States only has Social Security coming in. If Social Security goes away or changes, 1/3 of the United States doesn't know where their next meal is coming from. We have way, 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 way bigger problems than where your Social Security check's coming if that happens. As a society, we're going to figure out where your next meal's coming from. That is a systemic problem. That is not a real problem. If that happens, we have a lot bigger problems. So yes, from a financial planning standpoint, yeah. We've been told that by the actuarials over and over and over. So, yes, you had one, young lady. Did you have one? Yes. Yeah. I am. I'm the one that helps people at the district. So contact me. You can go through HR. Obviously, Nicole, Jennifer, all of them know who we are. I've been doing the retirement plan for Shawnee Mission School District for just over 20 years now. I know about half of you in the room. So, yes. So, but yeah, no, that's what I do. Listen, I'm not up here to solicit business from you guys. Here's what I'll say. We help you guys. That's our job. We will sit down with you. We will go through questions. We will help you do these planning and this strategy. That's what we're here for. That's not why I'm up here, but that's what we're here for, right? This is what I do all day long. I've got about 40 people a week that we're doing this for right now. So, yeah. So if you're retiring this year, get in touch with me and my team. We'll get on this right away. If you're retiring in the next couple of years and you want questions or help with this stuff, let's do it over the summer. That's all I ask. We'll be able to do it over the summer. So, yeah. Yes?
If you have four an account,
Huh? Yep.
that in, like, go in or what?
Great question. You can put the lump sum into any qualified plan. Okay, so you can do a 403B, 457, or an IRA. You just have to look and sit down and we figure out which one's most appropriate for your situation. A majority of the time, this is not 100%, a majority of the time, it is going to be an IRA because of the tax withdrawal benefits and the plan administrator signature requirements. In a 457, it's separation of service or 59.5, whichever you get first. So on a 457, it won't apply to anybody in here, but how many of you in here have some newer staff members that you work with? Like they're fresh off the bus, right? Every one of them should have a 457. As you guys have heard, KPERS Tier 3 is not going to be as solid as Tier 1 and Tier 2. There's nothing about it. I know people in this room know this. There has been legislative talk of reverting back to Tier 2 and abolishing Tier 3. See if that happens. I would be for it. It's not my place. I'm not there. But I know people on that committee, and I talk to them on a regular basis. But if you have a younger tier staff member that's in Tier 3, they should be putting into a 457. There's no question about that. You take money out of your paycheck, you put it away, you have access to that money the day you leave the school district. It is not age-based. So if you're 35 and you leave the district, you have access to that money for the rest of your life. Okay? From a planning standpoint, you're 54, you retire from the school district, you don't have access to a 403B. You don't have access to an IRA. You do have access to a 457. I have a few people that are caught with that this year. They want to retire, but they're 54. They got to wait another year to get their 403B open because they weren't put in a 457 like they should have been. It happens. So, Nicole, do you have a question? Oh, you're fine. Yeah. Normally I go that on a one-on-one basis, but that is a great point. What she's bringing up is if you do a partial lump sum, okay, right now in the state of Kansas, if you live in the state of Kansas, you do not owe any state income taxes on your benefit, right? Everybody knows this. Your benefit comes in, you don't pay any state income taxes. Your partial lump sum also maintains that rule. So when you roll that money over into a retirement account, KPERS sends you a letter that says you are doing this monthly and this pension, okay? That partial lump sum maintains that state tax. You do not owe any state taxes on that partial lump sum, okay? But to maintain that, it must go into an account that has no other monies, and you must be able to show that there are no other monies in that account, right? So if you have an IRA here, you do a partial lump sum, you always open a new IRA, and you put that money into that. That's an important one. Thank you. I don't normally go over that in this, but yes, I love it. That's a great one. It's the little things like that when you're doing retirements that can make a really big difference from a tax standpoint, whether it's income or it's the little stuff like that, that's what we want to make sure that you guys do right. So, and there's about 50 other. I'm sure I'm forgetting about half of them. But anyway. Other questions? Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody. Very nice to meet you.